Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all doing really well on this gorgeous Tuesday morning. My name is Dr. Brooklyn Storme, and I'm the Director and Principal Psychologist here at Cerebellum Consulting. The vlog that I'm going to talk about today also talks a little bit about Buddhism, and the reason for that is because I've had a viewer ask me about the origins of mindfulness. So of course I'm happy to oblige, but just wanted to give you the heads up in case it's not your cup of tea. So if it is, thank you, welcome. I hope you get something out of today's meeting. If it's not, I totally understand, and I'll see you tomorrow. So, okay, today I'm going to talk about this. Actually, in mindfulness, it all began with a young man who was on a pilgrimage, and I think he was a prince, and when he was a little boy he was very protected and he had everything that opened and shut. He had the best life, and then one day he got exposed to outside the palace walls, and then he saw that there was poverty and that there were people who didn't have clothing and there were people who didn't have food, etc., etc. So anyway, he went on a big pilgrimage and he was trying to understand how he might be able to help others free themselves from pain and suffering. So he went off and he tried all sorts of different things, and anyway, this took a period of years, took him away from his family, from his home. He walked through deserts, he walked through forests, he meditated alone, he meditated with others. Anyway, it all kind of culminates in this one event where he was sitting under a tree in a forest, and he just had this sense of anticipation. He just knew that he was on the brink of discovering something very important, and so he closed his eyes and he went back into the meditation, and apparently a few things happened, but one of the things that happened was he became overcome by awareness. And when I say awareness, what happened was he looked at a leaf from the tree. Hey Nindy, hey Taylor, how you going? So anyway, he looks at this leaf apparently, and he's just overcome with awe. In this leaf, he can see so many things. He can see the sun that was needed to make the leaf grow. He can see the wind and the rain that was needed to fertilize the tree. He can see the soil in which the tree grew. He can see that it started as a seed and then it must have grown into this big tree over, hey Lisa, how are you going? Over a period of time, and all this sort of stuff. So he has this big awareness that all of a sudden he's looking at more than a leaf. He's looking at what he thinks is like life and the entire universe in this leaf. So this is one of his big epiphanies. And anyway, he sort of comes out of his meditation and he feels like now he gets it and he wants to share with the world, this discovery that he's made. So anyway, because he's been sitting under the tree for months on end, meditating and everything, all the local kids come and they help him. They give him rice and they give him coconut and they cut buffalo grass for him to sit on so he can be comfortable when he's meditating. So the next morning, of course, the kids come back and they're giving him a little bit of food and some grass. And anyway, the kids say, hey, you look really different. And the guy's name is Siddhartha. So it's an Indian name, I think. So anyway, he's like, yeah, I think I've had this awakening. And so the little boy says, oh, what happened? So Siddhartha tells him, well, go and get all the other kids and, I'll tell everybody together. So all the other kids are very excited because they all know that he's been on this big pilgrimage looking for some kind of insight and inspiration into how he can help others alleviate their suffering. And so anyway, all the kids get dressed up and they're all wearing these, the girls are wearing really pretty little saris in sort of pale pink and teal, and it's got some little embroidery on it, etc., etc. And the kids bring rice that's been wrapped up in banana leaves, and they bring some tangerines, but obviously I don't have one, so I'm going to use a tangelo. And they used coconut and things like that. And so they all gathered around to listen to the story. So one of the girls is instructed by Siddhartha to hand out a tangerine to everybody that's sitting down. So she gives one to everyone, and then Siddhartha holds his, and he looks at it, and he just kind of holds it up, and he's looking at it, he's looking at it from every angle. And so the kids start to copy him. They start looking at their tangelos or tangerines from different angles, and they're really looking at it. And he starts talking to them and says, what do you see in this tangerine? And the kids are saying, oh, well, it's orange and it's a tangerine. So Siddhartha says, well, actually, when I look at this, I can see that sunshine had to go into it, and I can see that water had to go into it. I can see that it had to be tended to by a farmer, all of this sort of stuff. So the kids are like, yeah, that's right. So then they start looking at it too, and they can start to see everything that's gone into creating this tangelo. And then Siddhartha starts to peel it open. He does a better job of it than I do, and he smells it here like this, and he says, what can you smell? So the kids are like, oh, it smells really sweet, and oh, it smells delicious, and it smells nice and fresh. And so they're describing the smell of it. And then anyway, they end up peeling the tangerines, and then they look at the flesh of the tangerine, and he asks them again, well, what do you notice this time? So the kids are looking at their tangerine, and one of them says, oh yeah, well, it's in segments. And Siddhartha says, oh yeah, that's really interesting. Well, what else is in segments in life? So the kids are pretty cluey, and they say things like, oh, time, the days of the week, months of the year, things like that. So they start to draw these associations between this piece of fruit and other things that happen in daily life. Anyway, they eat the fruit, and they are asked, what does the fruit taste like, and let's describe it, and things like that. So that's what they do. And then when they're done, Siddhartha explains to them that this is called eating with awareness. So it involves being aware of everything about that piece of fruit. And the kids say, oh yeah, right, I get that. And then anyway, he holds up another one. He says, well, look, here's another one. What would it be like to eat this one without awareness? Well, you probably wouldn't even really know that you're eating it. I mean, you probably just go, it's a tangerine or it's a tangelo. You wouldn't be aware really that you were peeling it. You wouldn't be aware really that you were opening it up and breaking off the segments. You wouldn't really be aware that you were experiencing all the beautiful flavors and smells and things like that. You just eat it. It'd be like when we eat food on autopilot. So what he was saying was, this is mindfulness, and mindfulness is about being very aware of the things that are around us. And he just uses a piece of fruit as that's an example that the children had that day. And so anyway, it's like this big deal, and everybody's really happy, and they say, yeah, we hadn't thought about things like that before. And then one of the little boys says to Siddhartha, I would like to give you a new name in light of this wonderful discovery. And he says, I think I'd really like to call you Awake. And I think the language is Indian, I'm not sure, but it turns out that the word awake is actually spelled B-U-D-H, and it's pronounced Bud, like that. So to put it to a person, it's Buddha. So Siddhartha then became called Buddha, and that just means awakened one. And then the big tree that he was under was a sacred fig tree, and it's now called a fig religiosa. In the day, it was called a papala tree. And anyway, you can still get these trees today, and if you live in Melbourne, you can see the tree. There's one in the Botanical Gardens, I understand. But anyway, this tree has all big, beautiful, individual tree trunks that are all sort of interwoven together, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It's big and all this shade, and it's just amazing. And so anyway, the kids wanted to say, well, this tree's significant because this is where you had this epiphany, so we should call the tree awake as well. So anyway, the word for tree was B-O-D-H, which was bod, like that. And so then they called it Bodhi. So that's the Bodhi tree. And you'll recognize the Bodhi tree now because that's what we call the tree of life. So that's just a little bit of a story about the origins of mindfulness. Sarah, I hope it's answered your question. You'll have to excuse my very rudimentary, very quick rundown on the origins of mindfulness there and how they began with Buddhism. I'm sure, you know, as most of you know, I am Buddhist, and I'm sure my teachers probably, you know, very upset with me for not doing a better job of explaining it, but this is the best I can do. I hope that you have a better understanding now of mindfulness. It's really just about being aware and awake in the present moment. You don't just have to do it with a piece of fruit. You can do it with absolutely anything that you like. I would encourage you all to have a practice of just being really thoughtful about something that perhaps you eat or drink today. And I would love to hear any comments or feedback that you have about it. I would like to thank everyone for joining me today. It was so nice to have a bunch of you here. Thanks Nat, thanks Taylor, thanks Frank, thanks everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 58 of the 90 Days Share. Thank you so much for your company. Bye guys.